Common Ag with Jared and Ian. I mean, there's got to be a common sense approach to this. I mean, right?
Generation X has been quiet way too 15 seconds, velocity 2,700 feet per second, altitude 9. If it's all as we know.
Common Ag.
I want my MT.
Hey, and I feel fine.
All right. Welcome to Common X Podcast with Jared and Ian, episode 12. We're going to talk about healthcare today. How the hell are you doing today, Jared?
Good. How are you?
Doing good,
Or
brother.
the lack of healthcare?
What's that?
I said, or the lack of healthcare, you mean?
Yeah, the lack of healthcare. I mean, in recent events, this is going to make a good episode. It's a good conversation. Being that on December 4th, CEO Brian Thompson of United Healthcare was fatally shot. And I believe that there was a message that was being sent by the people. I mean, the people are pissed, right? I mean, we were supposed to have the Affordable Care Act, which was supposed to cover everybody, but yet we still have underinsured or uninsured. You've got Medicaid gaps. You've got all kinds of problems. And people are lacking sympathy when it comes to, you know, statements such as, oh, my sympathy is out of network, or, you know, things to that effect. I mean, I think that sends a pretty strong message, don't you, Jared?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you can see it in decisions like Blue Cross Blue Shield earlier in November made that stupid statement of we're going to limit how long anesthesiologists can, you know, charge time. And we're only going to pay for that. And so if it goes longer, you're footing the bill yourself. It's like, huh? That's ridiculous. I mean, they later reversed their statement because they have 115 million subscribers that all probably complained. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, how can these big companies dictate all these policies on insurance for the people?
Right. And I would certainly not condone murder of a human being, obviously. I mean, that's kind of what we're about here at Common X, is we're empathetic towards people. We care. We don't want to see anybody hurt, injured, or killed like that. But you know, it's really hard to look at the death of a human being like this and not be somewhat angered, right? I mean, because there's that other side of the scope as well, is that, you know, I mean, there's people who died because they couldn't get their needs met through health insurance as well, too, right?
Oh yeah, there's been probably millions of people that have died because of crappy healthcare coverage and crappy healthcare decisions. And just the cost of health insurance in general in this country is prohibitive for people to even go to the doctor. So, I mean, America is now one of the worst developed nations with health insurance, and we're supposedly the richest.
That's nuts.
How does that work?
So it seems like these healthcare companies, they kind of dictate a lot, right? I mean, they dictate how much a life is valued almost, right? I mean, I know that Blue Cross Blue Shield walked back their proposed policy or what they were going to do concerning, you know, anesthesiology or whatever. But I mean, wouldn't that force a medical practitioner or surgeon or, you know, whoever's doing these procedures to sort of rush, you know, be under the pressure to rush a surgery or something to that effect? Because now the surgery is just all about money. It's not about the need or why the individual is in there having surgery to begin with.
Yeah, I think so. I think doctors would take their time, but eventually, depending on how much they're going to pass that burden on to people, right? I think what the statement is that insurance is only going to cover up to this amount, right? So if your procedure is 2 hours long and the insurance is like, well, we only think it should be an hour and a half, so that's all we're going to cover. So then the other 30 minutes is footed by the person being operated on. And I don't know about you, but speaking from experience, I've had to file bankruptcy from healthcare, right? So I think 12 or 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I actually had such high medical bills from going to the hospital and other visits that I had to file for bankruptcy. And I think that's the
Yeah.
case for a lot of people in America.
Well, I
And
know,
it's just
like,
honestly ridiculous.
yeah, I had an interesting case not too long ago where, I'd taken my daughter to practice, and we had come home from practice, and I saw what looked like it appeared to be litter in the ditch, and it turned out it was a legal service. It wasn't in an envelope. It wasn't on my doorstep or anything like that. It was scattered throughout the ditch. I remember it was kind of, it was Wasatch season, equestrian season. So, of course, as there's like sleet and hail and these papers are getting wet in my ditch, I was being sued for a medical debt that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that we get an explanation of benefits on certain things, but it's never really clear cut and dry, and especially having a large family in a rural area like I do and like you do, it's not always clear what is covered. And if Kelly down in accounting, doesn't hits a wrong button on the calculator or something, next thing you know, you're sued. You haven't been contacted by a creditor or anything. Now it's legal. They want to get a garnishment or something like that. That's kind of ridiculous, don't you think? I mean, you suffered a bankruptcy. I've obviously had to obtain counsel before to combat these creditors to see if a debt's even legit. And it's always medical. It's always health insurance related.
Oh yeah.
It's not like I missed my cell phone payment or my house payment or didn't pay my electrical bill and the lights went off. This is just a bunch of garbage.
Yeah. Well, it's just the cost of things too. Like, so I got bucked off that horse, a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I cracked 6 vertebrae, cracked both my hips, and cracked, I think 6 ribs. So I got rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And had I known at the time how much that ambulance ride was going to cost, I would have called Life Flight because it would have been cheaper to have a helicopter come and pick me up.
What does that cost?
So I do that. There's a yearly membership that you can be part of for Life Flight.
Right.
Out of the hospital, out of Sacred Heart there. I think it's like $10 a month or something like that, or $20 a month. And of course, they're banking on you'll never have to use it. And then you're covered on the actual flight for the hospital, or from the location to the hospital. Whereas my ambulance ride was $4,000.
How do we even keep this ball rolling?
Deer Park to Spokane. That's like 30 miles. So, I mean, that's like, what, $1,000 a mile? I mean, that's ridiculous. So, and then, of course, insurance only paid half. And then later find out from the Deer Park emergency, whatever ambulance service, they're like, oh, well, you owe us another $1,800. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Ugh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've gotten garbage from that Deer Park urgent care before as well myself.
Yeah. So I mean, but
when you're at the
right, it's a prime example of how healthcare is broken in this country, and we spend the most out of any country on healthcare, and it's the worst. Like, if that doesn't say it, just volumes right there about how much corruption there is in the government, how much corruption and greed there is in these corporations that are for-profit systems. Insurance are for-profit; they're not for you.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
I mean, I think United States is like 18% of our GDP is spent on healthcare, and per capita spending is around $12,000. That's crazy. It's like, I think even when I was paying for insurance between my employer and me, I was paying $24,000 a year for health insurance, with still a $4,000 deductible. So it's like, it's a joke.
So you look at these high deductible plans and stuff too. I mean, like you said, I don't know if $4,000, that's probably not considered a high deductible plan, but some people have $10,000, $20,000 deductible plans. I mean, who honestly has that cash flow in their pocket to cover those expenses up front until health insurance kicks in? Is that even reasonable?
Right, exactly. So, and the other thing is like, well, if you're spending that much money on healthcare insurance, maybe I'd just be better off not having the company pay for my insurance or me paying for insurance at all, and just put that money in an account.
Right.
And so when I do have to go to the doctor, I'll just pay cash. It's probably cheaper.
What pisses me off is, my wife and I both carry health spending accounts, HSAs. So we
Right.
put extra money out of our paycheck into these, health spending accounts, and they accrue interest and all this stuff. But whenever I'm at the counter, whenever I'm at the doctor, I always say, what do I owe you? And they always say, oh, you don't owe us anything. It's not till months later or a year later when I'm being sued or I get some sort of collection in the mail saying that I owe something that we handle it at that time. So my HSA is basically no good now unless I'm paying a creditor for a debt that I didn't know about, and then I got to find out why I owe that debt, and we couldn't cover that at the office when I'm at the counter. It makes me want to just like throw down $100 bill and hand it to the lady and be like, you know what? I tell you what, I'm going to give you this $100 right now. You say that I don't owe you anything, but if it turns out I owe you something later and it's less than $100, then I'll send you to collections.
Right.
Why don't we have some sort of way of combating this? I mean, we're supposed to be cared for. That's why we go to the doctor. And I don't want to go to the doctor now. It's like, are we just going to start dying because we don't know that our health insurance is going to be there for us when we need it? Why do we pay into it?
We are going to die because the United States is now the lowest life expectancy rate out of all of the developed nations. So we are now living only to 78.9 years old, whereas other countries are 83, 82, 84. So, I mean, and we spend the most. So it's like, wait, that doesn't add up. Like, if we spend the most money, we should have the best, but we don't.
Right.
So instead of that money going to, doctors and physicians and nurses and everybody else, it's going to corrupt insurance companies and corrupt CEOs that are just greedy as hell. And all they care about is fucking money. And I'm tired of this country. Just everything's about money. Money. Right?
So in your opinion, then, going back to December 4th, the death of United's healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, is this a prime example of that?
It is, and I think we're going to see more of it. I don't condone it, right? But like, people are frustrated. They've tried other avenues. They've tried reaching out and working with companies. They've tried going through their political leaders, right? And the problem there is the Senate and House, most of those guys are just as corrupt, right? So they're going to pass laws that are for insurance companies and for the rich people. And say what you want about, Elon Musk or Trump or whatever, but we just elected a millionaire who's hiring billionaires to run the government. And we think that it's going to be better for us little people? I don't think so. Will it be better for the rich? It's likely. So, what are they going to start cutting first? Probably Medicare, Medicaid, right? Social Security, all stuff that they think is overburdening the American tax system. And it wouldn't be if insurance companies weren't involved. So, do I right now have an ultimate solution for healthcare? Not really. But I mean, as I look at research data for other countries, it doesn't sound like any other country has this problem solved very well either, right? There's pros and cons with everything. I think Canada is the closest because they have a single healthcare or a single payer system where the government pays for everything. And the cons are there's long lines at the doctor's office. And I'm like, isn't that a good thing? Like, people are going to the doctor's office more often, and they're probably living longer than we are because they're actually going to the doctor and making sure they catch stuff before it gets worse. So I think the big problem with America is people just don't go to the doctor until they have to, right? Until you wind up in the hospital for something. Like, you could have caught it earlier if you'd done, a monthly wellness check with your doctor, but after insurance bills start eating up into that, it's just like you keep waiting, keep putting it off, and then you wind up in the ER.
It makes me wonder, so how does the whole I mean, looking at the healthcare system alone, just looking at the nuts and bolts of that. So, like, how does that work? So a kid goes to college, they go to secondary school, they get a medical license to practice medicine. They open up a practice, and basically they have to be selected or join a. So the whole thing's controlled by health insurance.
What do you mean, from like college on, or
So
what?
like, yeah, so like you open up a practice, say you get your license to practice medicine, you open up a practice. I mean, how is it even determined how you get paid? Like, because there's in network, there's out of network.
Right.
So a doctor has to join up with a health insurance company to begin with, right?
No, they don't. So you can go, like, that's that whole in-work, out of network, right? So like, as a doctor or a physician, you can choose what healthcare coverage you want to accept, right? So if you have, say, I'm a doctor that does eye surgeries. That might be a good one. I don't know. You can say, well, I accept Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'll be a provider in their network, which means that you now charge less, right? So like, if I'm a doctor and I charged, this is all just hypotheticals, right? $1,000 for a laser eye surgery, right? When you go to the insurance company goes, well, we only accept that we should pay like $650 for that. So that immediately lowers the price of what that doctor's charging. And then if they can agree to be paying that lesser amount to be in network, because then the benefit of being in network is it drives more patients to you, right? So if you're out of network and you have insurance, you don't want to go to that doctor because you're not going to get that $650 rate. You're going to get the $1,000 rate. So, and you'll wind up paying the $1,000. Whereas with insurance, they're like, well, that procedure should only cost this much money. So then the doctor charges, the insurance pays what they're going to pay, and then you pay the remainder, right? Like if it's the 80% or if you've met your deductible or whatever. So then if another person comes in from out of network and goes in there, they're going to wind up paying the $1,000 because it's an out of network doctor, and they're not going to cover the whole amount. So they'll pay their $650 like they usually do, but then the doctor can bill you for the other $350 because you're out of network.
Okay.
So again, it comes down to money, right? Like how much is enough?
Right, and then the doctor is a business.
The highest paid people in our country, probably, right? Right up there with teachers. I'd rather have teachers some of the highest paid people in our country than, like.
Boy, you said it, buddy. Yeah, I mean, that's an important.
You got to pay for your education, because to become a doctor, that's a lot of costs to go to college.
Right, and I can understand with the overhead and everything involved with running a medical practice why they would need to charge and charge accordingly, of course. So, but at the end of the day, okay, so the doctor sets his price range, and then he's going to accept the insurance company that's going to pay him the most.
Right.
That's interesting, and then we're just stuck with whatever we get, whether it's through the ACA or our employer or our own private plan.
It highlights another problem again with getting back to the root cause of money and greed. Like, does it really cost that much to go to college to take? You have to be $1 million in debt to be a doctor? I think that's stupid. Like, as a country, I want to have like the best doctors, the best nurses, the best teachers. So let's fund that. Like, a person that wants to be a doctor shouldn't have to go $1 million in debt to be a doctor. And then when they start their own practices, they're kind of forced to do high price costs to, one, pay off their college, right? And then two, pay all their staff. So you got to realize it's not just the doctor you're paying for their building, all their equipment, their nurses, their staff, their front desk staff. So every time you go to a doctor, you're paying all of that.
Right.
as an individual. So the more people they see, the more money they would get. That would help offset that cost.
Right. And you mentioned the millions of dollars that go into the education of becoming a medical practitioner or physician. And then you look at the health insurance companies. Now, I wonder if, so this Thompson guy, he was with United Healthcare since like 2004 or something as an employee. But I wonder is this where medicine and big business meet in the middle? Like, the insurance company's paying the bill, right? The doctor decides how much he's going to charge. But are these executives for these healthcare companies, do they have any experience in medicine, do you think?
I think some of them might. I doubt most of them do, though. Most of them are probably coming out of Wharton Business School as CEOs, right? here's your new business degree out of Wharton Business School. Now go ruin somebody's life by being a CEO that gets paid millions and millions of dollars, while your employees get $10 an hour. And again,
Immediately,
for college, right? So you got the big bill of the college, but with some of these average CEO salaries at millions of dollars a year, guess what? You just paid off your college. Now, you don't graduate college and become a CEO, right? You got to work your way up. But still, the amount we pay for that is ridiculous. And I think we spent 2022 we spent $4.3 trillion on healthcare. $4.3 trillion. Like, you're telling me, man, like, we couldn't come up with a better way to do that with that much money? Like, I'm saying there should be no private business involved with healthcare at all. No insurance companies. Should all be run by the government because it's a basic human need. Everyone needs medical insurance or medical coverage.
Right.
Period. Like, if you disagree with me, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right? No. Sorry.
I'm with you. It's a human need. I mean, it's obviously a human need. It's not a luxury. It's a fucking need, man. We're born with certain things and we need
there's a lot of things that go into that, right? Humans in America eat shitty food. Like, we have some of the worst food in the world.
Yeah,
there's hearings in the Senate right now. Like, Bernie Sanders is having Senate hearings right now with these industries that make all this crappy food, and they're like, why can't you be like Europe and not include all these ingredients that are proven to cause cancer or cause other health issues, or put sugar in every single product because it's an addictive chemical, and somehow miraculously we have this humongous outbreak of diabetes in America because we put sugar in everything.
Yeah, we should have an episode on like the Food and Drug Administration for sure one of these days. I'd be interested to delve into that and see what the hell's going on there. Because I mean, you're right. I don't know what I eat. I mean, we live kind of in a rural area, and not so much anymore. But we used to, raise hogs and eat our own stuff and eat out of the garden whenever we can. But yeah, that's a good question to. I mean, that poses a huge question to medical risk, and then the health insurance company, conversation comes up. And then I think about people like Martin Shkreli. Remember that? The farmer bro. It's like, what business did he have? He bought a patent to a drug and then just hiked the prices up. And then next thing you know, he's owning exclusive rights to a Wu-Tang album or a song or something like that, just fucking people's lives up. Right. It seems like that whole kind of thing is still, it seems like it's entangled with the death of Brian Thompson in a way. Like, and I am saying that, and my condolences to his family. But really, it just looks like another case of greed, and somebody is like, I'm done with that. I'm over that.
Yeah, I mean, it ties back to our corporate greed episode, right? Like, if you do a psych eval for a corporation because they're deemed as people by the United States government, they're pathological psychopaths, right? They don't care about anyone else but themselves, and it's all about making money. How much money can we make as a company? Screw the rest of the employees, or screw the people that we cover. I just want to make the most money so our stockholders can make money themselves, and we can pay out big dividends to have more people buy our stock and make more money. And it's just an endless vicious cycle. So, insurance companies have to do the same thing. Right? They got to make money. But I saw what was it? An interview with Mark Cuban the other day, and he started that kind of private health insurance company. And he's like, "How much money is enough?" He's like, "I'm not charging outrageous rates for things because I don't think people should have to pay that." So I like what he's doing. He's another rich millionaire, right? But he actually has a heart and seems like he cares about people, at least publicly. So, and that's my thing. Like, if you're giving back and you're doing the right thing, and you're still making $1 million or a couple $1 million a year, then all right, cool. Right? Just be a cool person. But stop screwing people over. And that definitely goes into healthcare. Like, these insurance companies do not care. And I think between you and I, we have probably tons and tons of examples. And it's consolidating, right? The huge insurance companies own tons of little insurance companies. So it's almost getting to the point where they have a monopoly. Like, even United Healthcare, they own OptumRx, which is one of the biggest online pharmacies. So they can determine what's going to get covered and what's not going to get covered. Because I've had OptumRx tell my doctor that they don't think I should take that medicine.
Oh, I've run into the same thing. Yeah.
Right? Like, well, I'm pretty sure my doctor knows because he's been prescribing that medicine to me for the past 2 years. But all of a sudden, you guys decide that you don't want to cover that medication anymore, or you're not making as much money on that one. So we're going to switch you to something else.
Yeah.
Like, I'm diabetic, so my insulin, that happens with my insulin all the time. Like, oh, we're going to cover this one. Then I go to refill the prescription, and the pharmacist is like, well, that's $1,600. I'm like, huh? Like, it was $85 last time. Oh, well, it looks like your insurance company isn't covering that anymore. I'm like, well, that's news to me, right? And that's news to my doctor. So now I got to call my doctor and go, all right, well, I guess the insurance company isn't accepting this form of insulin anymore. So do you have something else? And luckily there's a bunch of different manufacturers of insulin, so they'll switch me to something else, and that works almost as good. But lots of people that even watch the show are going to have cases like that where the insurance company is dictating to you what you should take over what your doctor says you should take because of how much money they want to make. Because it's not about your well-being. I have zero faith that the insurance company is like, whoa, well, that, insulin's a bad insulin. It's caused a lot of issues, blah, 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 blah. So we don't think you guys should prescribe it. Right. And that's the insurance company going, oh, well, if we keep covering that one, we're going to lose money versus if we have them use this insulin where we make $20 more per prescription, right? And then if they do that across the board and they have, like Blue Cross Blue Shield has 115 million subscribers, say 30% of those are probably diabetic, and then, add the costs, that's $300 million difference that they put back into their pocket because they said we're not going to cover that insulin anymore.
Yeah, that's just
so that's why the government needs to get involved, and that's why, like, I think Bernie Sanders led that thing where they actually lowered how much they could charge for insulin, especially for Medicare and Medicaid patients. To I think it was like $30 a month or $60 a month per prescription.
Yeah, it's a shame it has to go there. I mean, I've heard of presidents, Democratic and Republican. I think I've even heard of Trump or some of these other guys. They say they're working to drop prices.
Right.
It's so ridiculous that it has to go to the executive level of this country. It has to go to the president's desk to get these guys under control. That should be stopped in the Congress and in the Senate. Should it not? I mean, why has it got to go up that high? That's crazy.
Well, again, I think I think as a society, America needs to get together and go, what are the basic needs for humans? Health
Yeah.
insurance or health coverage is one of those. So that is something that should be funded by the government. Plain and simple. There's no money making, right? I guarantee you we can cover everybody in this country with $4.3 trillion a year that we spend on private insurance and other healthcare costs. So I'm pretty sure that Medicare, Medicaid is not that much per year.
See, and I'm kind of I'm really ignorant to this. I'll admit it. I'm oblivious and ignorant to this. I'm the first guy to get pissed when I find out that a creditor is coming after me for a medical debt that I don't know that I have. So a lot of that is on me because I don't pay close enough attention to it. Because I have health insurance through my employer, but
Right.
we have the Affordable Care Act, right? I mean, that's still in place. Yeah. I know there's a lot of people that are against it. There's a lot of people that are for it. Because like you said, it's a human basic need. We all need health insurance. But so aren't we covered then through our government right now as the ACA stands?
Kinda. I mean, it's still private insurance. So even if you go out to the Obamacare or ACH, whatever, right? It's still private companies providing the insurance. It's just at a discounted rate.
So basically, the government brokered a deal for health insurance for people.
Correct. You're still going through an insurance company. It's not actually administered by the government. And fair point. I think our government's horrible at running things. You know, they're not very efficient. You know, that's one of the things that got Trump elected. The status quo that's going on with our government is horrible. Just again,
people have definitely lost faith in the system for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's why people elected Trump, because they want change. Whether he's going to do that or not, we'll see. Right? He's got 4 years to change my mind. I don't think he will. I think he's just going to do what he did first term, or the first time he was president. And appointing billionaires to cabinet offices doesn't give me any confidence that they're going to be able to solve that, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely raises eyebrows here as far as the healthcare system is concerned. I'm wondering do you think that the death of Brian Thompson it will be an eye opener for some of these health insurance companies?
It's an eye opener for security companies. So I had 100,000% increase in clients reaching out. Like I read that news the other day. Lots of security companies are now being hired by CEOs and other people to provide security.
So you think that'll be the...
Well, yeah. I think they see that people are pissed off, right? Like they don't want that to happen to them, so they're going to pay for private security, and they're going to pass that cost on to the people that are their customers. Are they going to pay for that out of their pocket? No, it'll be another line item. Corporate security.
Right. The immediate response will be, oh, we're going to double down. We're not going to fix our policies. We're going to increase security.
Right. We're not going to fix anything or look at our companies and see how we're treating our customers and our employees. We're just going to go out and hire these private security firms to protect us from psycho people that are going to come and try and kill us because we're assholes. Because we're greedy bastards.
I would think that, I mean, if a guy travels to New York and spends 10 days getting to know the lay of the land to murder somebody, to escape off into the night, disappear into the night after clearly, pulling off this plan to kill this guy, an executive of a health insurance company. If a guy is going to put, 10 days into it and all this stuff and get away with it, I mean, that's a whole new level of pissed, man. That is fuck around and find out pissed.
Yeah. But I mean, when I had to file bankruptcy for my medical insurance, I was kind of there. And that was just because I had to file bankruptcy. Like, that's not because I lost somebody, right? Like, people lose people every single day because of bullshit healthcare decisions in this country and what we don't cover. And don't even get me going down the rabbit hole if we've had cures for cancers for the last 40, 50 years. But, we don't actually want to cure anybody in this country. We just want to treat the symptoms of the problem. Because then insurance companies don't make money if Americans aren't sick. And I think they're in collusion with the food companies. Maybe not knowingly, but maybe they are. I don't know. I'd love to see who's on the board of directors between food companies and then insurance companies. But
Hold on, that's an interesting thought. Let's explore that for a minute. What do you mean?
Well, if you perpetuate a problem like diabetes, right, through putting more crappy ingredients in food with sugar and high carbs and push that to the poor people because it's cheaper than, the alternatives of fresh, healthy food, then you're forcing them to buy that. You're forcing them to eat that. And now they're higher, the obesity rate in children's going up. The amount of diabetics in this country is crazy, at an all-time high because of how much sugar and stuff we put in foods. So instead of fixing the root problem of, all this crap that they're putting in foods, they're like, well, you don't need to stop eating food. Just take Wegovy or Jardiance or insulin or this drug or this drug or this drug. Keep eating the way you're eating, right? And don't fix the problem. Just keep taking drugs to band-aid the problem. And that's, I think, the case for a lot of medications in this country. Some of the heart medications, there's alternative ways of eating and diets that doctors have tried to get out. Even like the carnivore diet's a good example. People that have switched to that after eating, crappy food their entire life lose a ton of weight. And they're cutting out all the crappy food. So there's a lot of proof in eating healthier makes you healthier. But if you can't afford that healthy food because it's more cost prohibitive and it's a higher price in the supermarket, then you're going to go to the cheaper, crappier food for you and your kids.
It's interesting. That sounds like murder.
Which just perpetuates the problem. So, and the research shows sugar is more addictive than heroin.
I like it.
Right? Like,
that's for sure.
It affects the same receptors in your brain, the same pleasure centers in your brain as drugs do. It's been researched to the nth degree, so the data is out there. You can go look for it, and that's why they put it in everything. Like, why do I need sugar in crackers? Or why do I need sugar in bread? Or why do I need this? There's sugar in everything. Like, if you go to your grocery store and you look at pretty much every aisle in the middle of the store, I guarantee you sugar is in almost every ingredient of a food that's in that aisle, in those aisles.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper. So, and it's faster. It's more convenient. So there's that as well. That's why I think fast food is so big as well. And fast food's not any healthier. It's just faster and convenient, like when you're on the go. But it's not something you should eat all the time.
Right. Well, it's just so interesting to me. So going back to the death of the CEO, it showed that in his tenure, he had increased profits by $4 billion. He was murdered after an investor conference. I mean, the guy wasn't at a health conference or a medical research conference or something. He was at an investor conference. Right. So is this where we're going? So I consider you, Jared, you're an expert in agile leadership. I mean, you're a published author. You and I have both, worked the corporate world. We've both been, we both have different, supervisor experiences, and we know about cost-cutting initiatives, and we know about getting lean. So for these health insurance companies, doesn't it seem like the only way they can increase profits is to just cut? Is that kind of what the Blue Cross Blue Shield anesthesiology argument kind of is we're going to limit the time that we're going to pay for when people are under anesthesia, under, when they're essentially under, so we can cut costs. So there's no strategy to improve, advancements in medicines. I mean, there are, but
Not
as
by
far as
insurance companies.
not by the insurance companies, right? So all they can do to increase profits is cut, right?
Yeah, either cut there or cut jobs. So a lot of those jobs are administrative jobs that could be replaced by AI agents. So I guarantee you, insurance companies right now are looking at how many AIs they could put in place of people, so they won't have to pay people anymore.
I'm wondering
Again,
if, like, even all the way
kind of
down
a
to medical
culmination.
billing.
Yeah, so like it's a culmination of all the episodes we've talked about so far, right? Corporate greed, AI, this one. So
Yeah.
it's those are and
The world
servant
we
leadership,
live in.
right? Like the way the leadership style, like you should embrace servant leadership because that's the way Jesus did it. So if you're a Christian at all, right? Why wouldn't you lead how Jesus led? So I'm not a huge religious person. I was raised religious and kind of rebelled against it, but as an example of somebody to follow, like a leadership style, that's perfect, right? You're there to serve the people that work under you and to make them successful and to make your customers successful, or whatever your customers are. Like happy employees equals happy customers.
So you're not
Guarantee it.
supposed to build them up to lay them off?
No.
That seems to be kind of where we're going in the world.
Well, and again, AI it's coming for your jobs. It really is. Like once it achieves artificial general intelligence, like it's smarter than we are. So, all these big manufacturers are now making all these robots. Tesla's making their robot. Elon Musk's like, well, it'll be $30,000 and you can have a robot in your house too. Well, I guarantee he'll probably do the chores better than my kids do.
Probably doing better than I do too. I mean,
so sure, I'll buy one.
My wife
Right,
asked
but
me to
at the
clean the
same
table
time-
yesterday, and I hung them on the Christmas tree. Just the shit that our kids laid out on the table. It's wild.
Right, but at the same time, great, you made it $30,000. But if nobody has a job, how is anybody going to pay for that robot? Because
Right.
AI has replaced all our jobs, and people's like, oh, well, it'll create new jobs and different jobs, and I'm like, yeah, kind of. Like once you get AGI, it doesn't really need humans anymore. It can develop its own programming language. So why do you need engineers for it to do the code anymore? It can run manufacturing facilities. So why do you need humans to run a manufacturing facility?
So do you
It
think
can
we
run all the infrastructure.
do we kind of just go back into the rat wheel where, okay, now we lost our job to AI, so then we get a lower paying job, and now we have health insurance that's not as good as the last shitty insurance plan that we had, and now we can't afford to eat the healthy foods that are keeping us healthy, so we don't have to use that insurance plan, and then we just kind of cycle back down to the bottom? Why the health insurance executives get richer and richer?
I think
our life
even
expectancy
insurance
lowers?
executives could be replaced as well. Like, what's the need for them in an AI world? Like, if AI can run everything more efficiently than we can, then what do you need a human for up there?
Yeah.
Checks and balance, right? Like, lots of people argue, well, humans should still be in control and in charge. And like, well, we're pretty evident at 2024 years that we're not great at managing ourselves. Because we still live in a world with war and poverty and killing every day, making money off the backs of people. I'm pretty sure we're pretty self-evident that we can't run ourselves very well.
Right. And I've heard it. I heard a term just yesterday that I hadn't heard in forever. I think it was an Aerosmith song, maybe, but "Eat the Rich" is coming back.
Yeah.
I heard that. When we see comments on TikTok or on Facebook or Instagram, where people literally say, my empathy is out of network for the man who was just killed in New York, leaving the investor conference that happened to be the CEO of United Healthcare.
Right.
That we're getting back to Robin Hood times.
I mean, you go back to FDR, who created like Social Security and he served 4 terms. He was president. He was elected president 4 times.
How the hell does that?
Unfortunately, he died during his 4th term, like a couple months into it. But I mean, look at all the stuff he did. He got us out of the Great Depression. He gave people jobs. He gave people, on building roads and infrastructure in the country. And he took care of people, like that whole Social Security and, Medicare and Medicaid came after. And the rich people at the time were pissed because he raised taxes on them. He's like, you guys are making a crap ton of money and all the little people are not. He's like, so you guys are going to pay for this. Because again, it goes back to how much money is enough? Like, how much money does one person need? Does Elon Musk need $100 billion?
I don't know. I don't have $100 billion. It's hard to say.
He ran some companies, but does that justify an outrageous amount of money to go to one person when that money could go to feed millions of people or take care of millions of people? I don't see the justification. And I think that's like where your comment, eat the rich, or this guy shooting the executive. People are fed up and frustrated with it. They're tired of the wealth disparity and gap in the country and not being able to afford basic things. Like the cost of living has gone up unbelievably since COVID. And the research has shown that corporations just kept the prices they have in COVID because we paid it. The cost of making the stuff didn't go up. It just made their bottom lines fatter. So why would we lower the prices back down if you guys are all going to pay this anyway?
Right.
Again, corporations are psychopaths.
So
I haven't heard that enough in this episode. Hey, guess what? Corporations are psychopaths.
Well, I'm definitely jealous. I don't have all that money. I would like to think that if I did, that
right, but what would you do
I'd
with
make
it? Right?
more.
So, like, here's the thing. Like, okay, you have a giant yacht, like Bezos, right? He paid $150 million for his giant yacht, or however much he paid, right? A boat for one person. How often is Jeff Bezos going to be on that boat? I guarantee he's not living on it full time. So, do I want a yacht? Hell no.
I kind of
know how
like
much
that.
it costs to maintain those fucking things? Millions of dollars a year. Like, you got to
Right,
pay
it's
the
not
crew, you got to pay the fuel, you got to pay the berthing fees. Like, it is ridiculous how much it costs to maintain one of those boats. Not to mention how much you had to pay for it in the first place, right? And that money could be better spent on something else or someone else. So, I think in America, we've gotten sold on this American dream where you're not an awesome person unless you have a 600,000 square foot house or a $200 million yacht or a helicopter or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, right? All these material things that are bullshit in the long run. Because guess what, rich people? You can't take that with you when you're dead. So wouldn't you rather have lived a more fulfilled life helping other people than just living for yourself? I don't know. Again, that's just me and my mentality. I can't fathom how rich people think, like greedy people think. It's just, I need more money, more money, more money. I'm like, what are you doing with that money? And they'll argue, well, by me buying $100 million boat, look how many people have a job because of that. Like, okay, sure, I guess, but they could be doing something else.
Yeah, it would be nice to, see more empathy and more caring in the world. I'm not sure how it correlates. I'm not an expert, but do you think that these two incidents are pretty close? You had the the release from Blue Cross Blue Shield that was walked back, and then you had the executive that was murdered. I mean, these two things happen like back to back, right? Do you think that this will make any difference, or that we'll see any sort of change at all?
No,
I mean, whether it's politically or socially,
no.
almost like it didn't even matter. I mean, those
What's
are
the
two
point?
major.
Why would they? They just went out and bought more security, right? They'll now be rolling in armored cars and have armed security guards. Right? They're not going to fix the problem or address the issue that created the problem. They're just going to pay more money, right, to secure themselves away from the little people that might do that. They're not going to fix the problem. They have no incentive to do it because corporations are psychopaths. So I'll say it over and over again. They just don't care. They do not care about you. The corporation does not care. Bottom line, doesn't care. All it cares about is making money. That's it.
Right. And it's just kind of crazy how that's where
They may say they care, right? And there are companies out there that actually care for people that aren't overcharging or, doing outrageous cost overrides or overruns on, charging people out the butt for things. But I think those are few and far between. And they're going away as corporations start buying up more and more companies, as everything is starting to consolidate down. And you can see that in the healthcare industry, right? There's probably 3 or 4 health insurance companies in the US that own all the other health insurance companies.
Is that right?
And then you got firms like BlackRock, which own everything in the US. Right? They have investments in so many different companies that honestly they've become a monopoly of all companies. Because if you have enough shares in a company, you can start dictating what types of things you want to see that company do.
Right.
Or I'm going to sell my stock and make your stock go to the floor. It's 2006, right? In all developed nations. So it's not, what's crazy is just it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. And we spend more than any other country on health insurance, and our health insurance is horrible. We're in last place.
Right.
Developed countries. Like I think Norway is number 1. Netherlands is number 2.
I've heard that. I've heard that
And
before.
I think the other thing that sucks about the US is there's no universal healthcare system. Right? Like these other countries have some form of universal healthcare. Right? It's not a for-profit industry because again, it's a basic human need. So making money off that is ridiculous. And that's why everything costs so much money in this country, because we have to pay all these middlemen and all these health insurance companies their money in order to be covered for health insurance. Because again, like I said earlier, we spent $4.7 trillion on health insurance in 2023.
That's wild. So do you think that we can learn from other countries like Germany or places like that seem to be doing a little better?
Yeah, I think so. Like I think America needs to adopt a universal healthcare system. Right? It could be a multi-payer system, or Canada I think has the single payer system, so that's where the government pays for everything, right? And it's okay-ish. Lots of people complain about high wait times, or trying to get into the doctor. But like I said earlier, I think that's a good thing because people are going to the doctor more often. So I bet their case of chronic rates of diseases or heart failures or anything like that is probably lower than the US because they're going to catch it faster and earlier because people are always going. So, I mean, it can be a bad thing because if you're the guy that has to wait, a month to get in to see the doctor, But I think they still have like emergency services that you can still go in. But so like there's single payer systems, right, funded by and administered by the government, which provides that universal coverage. There's multi-payer systems, which involve multiple insurance providers, both public and private, which is kind of how we are a little bit. But if you count like Social Security or Medicare, right? Medicare, Medicaid is that state or government funded part of the health insurance. And then as a Medicare, Medicaid patient, you can go out and buy supplemental insurance. So you have kind of dual coverage, right? To pick up what Medicare and Medicaid doesn't pay. There's national health insurance systems, which combine elements of the single payer and multi-payer systems, and typically funded by taxes, but allowing private insurance options. And then there's out-of-pocket systems where I talked about earlier, where you just go to the doctor and pay cash, right? But those are mostly for like developing countries, not developed countries like we have. So
You just want to.
So I think, in kind of conclusion, I don't think I have any whole answers to how to fix the problem. I think we can start in America by doing a universal healthcare system where we figure out who's going to pay for that, right? It's going to have to be tax dollars. So it's either going to be the government and contributions from employees, employer and employee funded, right? So employees cost and employers cost cover that, and then it goes into a pot that pays for everybody, right? Not just one person. Right. I think that's a start in the right direction. And we can cross the bridge when we get there, or talk about how we want to implement it going forward. But US citizens need to start saying, hey, enough's enough. Like health insurance, healthcare coverage, or just coverage in general is a basic human need and right on this planet. So take the for-profit systems out of it, get rid of the insurance companies, and that $4.7 trillion can go back into the government to help pay for coverage for every single person in this country. Because again, as I pointed out earlier, we have the highest costs and most per capita costs of any other developed nation, and we have the worst health coverage. So the money's there. It's the third party systems that are getting in the way and making it so not everyone's covered, and making it so everything costs just way more in the US than it does everywhere else. So talk to your congressman. That's where unfortunately, that's how we have to go at it, right? Like, unless we're like France and we just, straight up revolt and, start marching on Washington and shut down the government until they actually change it. So France has gotten pretty good results with that. Maybe America should look into that too.
Wow. Looks like that might be the direction that we're starting to head down, I guess. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on Common X Podcast with Jared and Ian, episode 12, healthcare coverage in America.
Probably part 1.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a wide range of things. I'll add to that. I think the only thing that we can really do for each other is to arm ourselves with the knowledge. Understand the open enrollment periods, understand the explanation of benefits the best way that we can. We're kind of forced into this, but if you have the ability to compare plans or researching even eligibility or supplemental plans, even that, like you mentioned earlier, Jared, I think just knowledge is going to be the best play for us, and we'll probably just still fall victim to a broken system for sure. But thanks for joining us, everybody. Jared, awesome as always, man, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and I'd say a closing remark is, Trump said MAGNA, right? Make America great again. It starts with us. We have to demand the change to make this country a better country for all of us to live in. So hopefully he can do it. We'll see.
All right. We'll see you, buddy.
Later. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from, content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.